Hello everyone, today I'm in the US Virgin Islands and I would like to explore the topic of misleading government data, or more specifically, the Labor Department's calculation of the unemployment rate. The officially published unemployment rate in the US is stated at 4.4%, which sounds really good. Not just good, but we may even be nearing a labor shortage. But let's look a little closer at how this number is measured. To be unemployed, you must first be 100% unemployed. Even driving for Uber or DoorDash, say 1 hour per week, would, according to the government, make you gainfully employed, which doesn't exactly make sense, but let's continue. Each month, the Labor Department takes a small survey of approximately 60,000 households to determine what the unemployment rate is. And if you happen to receive one of these surveys, which I certainly never have, and anyone else I know never has, but let's just assume you are one of these random households, you will be asked if you are employed. Even marginally employed still counts, and if not, are you looking for work? It's estimated that over 7 million Americans are only working part-time, yet are actively seeking full-time employment, yet are not counted as unemployed. Adding back these 7 million Americans who are unable to find full-time employment increases the total unemployment rate to around 8 to 9%. And there's more. Then there is what the Labor Department calls the labor force participation rate, which is the total percentage of working age people either working full or part-time or actively seeking work. Since around the year 2000, this number has been steadily decreasing and is now around 62%, which is down about 5 percentage points from just 2 decades earlier. 5% might not sound like much, but when you consider the total labor pool is approximately 212 million people, which are in the age group of 18 to 64 years of age, that's over 10 million Americans who, for one reason or another, have simply given up on finding work and have dropped out of the labor force. Adding back these 10 million lost laborers now gives us an unemployment rate of between 13 to 14%, which likely better explains why there is so much visible poverty as well as homelessness in America. These aren't the great times many in the media lead us to believe. But how can this be happening? The simple answer is the government strategy by both parties, Republican as well as Democrat, has been to simply ignore the growing unemployment and poverty problem and only publish data which fits their agenda. That things are great, the tax cuts are working, the economy is expanding, the population is steadily growing, and inflation is under control. And not only does the problem not exist, but we have the opposite problem. We instead have a labor shortage problem, especially in, say, the service and transportation industries such as truck driving, DoorDash, Uber, etc. And sorry for lumping Uber and DoorDash in with trucking, but the pay is getting so low in the trucking industry that many people have transferred between Uber and truck driving, as the salary for both jobs is at or below minimum wage when considering many truck drivers really work more than 70 hours per week, yet are only paid on a per mile basis, which doesn't always reflect their total time worked, thus putting them below the minimum wage. At one time, truck driving was a solid blue-collared job, but not so much anymore. Whereas jobs like Uber and DoorDash were never meant to provide a blue-collared salary, but to instead feed off the surplus labor force, which is quite large in America. Under both President Joe Biden and Barack Obama, one of the primary reasons for enacting liberal immigration policies was this supposed labor shortage, which was hurting the American economy, and one fix was to import workers willing to work for lower pay. Yes, this might have solved the artificial labor shortage in these industries, but meanwhile, the shadow group of unemployed has steadily grown over the last 2 decades, with millions of Americans not being counted and being completely left out of these supposed prosperous times. And even during the best years during the last 2 decades, poverty data, such as the total number of food stamp recipients, has mysteriously remained stubbornly high. How can there be so many people in need of government assistance if times are so good? The simple answer is times never were so good. Economic prosperity likely peaked in America during the 1990s and possibly even long before, when the inflation of the 1970s and 1980s caused the real value of the dollar to fall and necessitated the need for the transition to two-income earner households and the gradual decline of the middle class. Today, though unemployment is quoted at 4.4%, still over 41 million Americans receive food stamps, and another 20 million qualify for food stamps but choose not to participate, likely due to all the government red tape as well as the stigma associated with free government handouts. Yet, that's still over 60 million Americans, or about 20% of the population, who have difficulty providing basic necessities such as food for themselves and their families. And are we still to believe that only 4.4% of Americans are unemployed? Ignoring the problem not only won't make it go away, but likely makes it even worse, as the unemployment problem has festered into deeper poverty, homelessness, and drugs. Millions of Americans are living on the streets because they are either unemployed or fall into the category of the working poor, similar to, say, feudal times in medieval England, when workers and life in general was cheap and considered expendable. Each year, over 100,000 Americans die from drug overdoses. Is life really that hopeless in America that hundreds of thousands of people are basically choosing suicide by drugs? The American government has largely ignored the problem of both poverty and drugs in our country and has instead focused on only a narrow set of data that portrays economic and social life in the best light. Do you think the official unemployment numbers should be expanded to include all the millions of Americans being left out of the count? Please leave your questions and comments below, and thank you for watching.